The biggest thing, what's most important and why this really needs to be a hospitality industry are your reviews and how much your reviews actually matter.
Yeah, well, it's live and die by reviews. It became more transparent, and I think it's a good thing. Like that way you can raise your standards and keep your standards, not, oh, I can hide this bad experience somehow. Like, no.
I mean, I've lost out on probably 5 or 6 listings this year because I was completely honest with my clients and told them it wasn't the right move to sell or it wasn't the right time to rent the house out, and because we couldn't get enough rent to cover their bills or whatever it might be. And that's where we as agents have to do what's right for the clients, and that might be a short-term rental and introducing them to Roman. And with that abundance mindset that we both have, it's all going to come back to us in the end. And if we're doing the right thing, we're successful, and that's what we're here for. And that's one of the reasons why I, personally like to partner with Roman, because he's a guy that I trust, and I want to make sure that he's doing the best to take care of my clients, and so we want to make sure we're doing the right thing for our community. And that's what's important, and that's why we love Dripping Springs. That's why we love Austin, South Austin, and this whole area. It's full of guys like Roman, and that's something that I'm proud of, and happy to call him a friend, and happy to call him a competitor and a collaborator.
Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast, your ultimate destination for all things Dripping Springs. I am your host, Bill Cafferetta, and we are here to celebrate what makes this town the best place to live in the Texas Hill Country. It's amazing people. Join us as we sit down with local residents and business owners to hear their stories, learn why they love this community, and are proud to call it home. We will be spotlighting their businesses, find out why they choose to serve the people of Dripping Springs, and dive into the local events that bring our community together. Our finger is always on the pulse, and we will be keeping you informed about how our rapid growth and development is impacting our schools, resources, and the local real estate market. Whether you're a lifelong resident or you have just discovered Dripping Springs, you will soon know why we are all sold on drip. Thanks for joining, and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Sold on Drip podcast. I'm your host, Bill Cafferetta, and I'm really excited for this week's guest, Roman Tomkiv with Casago Vacation Rentals. Roman is a passionate hospitality entrepreneur and a real estate investor. We're going to learn a lot today about real estate and different options here in Dripping Springs. And if you want to follow Roman on social media, I highly recommend it. His name on Instagram is Roman_hospitality_expert. You can simply find him on Facebook at Roman Tomkiv. There's not too many guys out there with that name, so he's easy to find. Welcome, Roman. I'm super excited to have you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's dive right in and let's learn about Roman, man. Who is Roman and what makes Roman go?
Awesome. Well, yeah, there's a lot to unpack, but I'll just keep it short and sweet. Kind of maybe start from the beginning, whereas as you can probably say from my first name and last name, I wasn't born here. I came originally from Ukraine back in 2000, kind of for college. And then obviously I never came, I never left. Lived in like New York, Jersey area for about 20 years. And then kind of right before COVID, I found myself in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was in finance before, in the property management, real estate investing space. So it was like I spent about a decade on Wall Street. So that was quite an experience. And right before COVID, left New York, moved to Charlotte, worked in Charlotte for a little bit, and then COVID hit. And that new opportunity came along, like, wow, I can still work and travel, like the whole remote work. Obviously being, financial services industry is really kind of strict and conservative. You got to come to work. There's not a lot of working from home. But that opportunity came along, and I got to travel. And then as we were kind of going back to the office, I was like,
you're probably not wearing a t-shirt to work in the financial industry either.
Yes. So, and as we were like thinking about, I'm like, all right, I got to use this crisis, right? There's even a good saying, don't let good crisis go to waste. I'm like, I got to find a way not to go back to the office. So that was kind of my big aha North Star goal. I mean, I had some previous real estate investing experience, but never like, acting like a running a business, given like I'm running a property management business. Right. So all these kind of moves, got me to Charlotte, then, got me to Denver, and then got me here where I am, like Austin, Dripping Springs area. So kind of keep it, short. kind of Ukrainian born and raised in Jersey, New York area. Giants fan. I guess I'll say Yankees fan as well. So you'll feel better, Bill. I know you're a Yankees fan. And I'm here. The reason, again, traveled about 40, 45 different states, seen a lot of the places, and Texas kind of crosses a lot of the boxes. Weather, great people, great business opportunities. It just, great place to be. So kind of keep it, 20 years in like 2.5 minutes. That's me. That's what I do. Married. We had our first wedding anniversary just this year, so it was super exciting. No kids yet. We have a cat, Tommy. So basically, we're joking that's our kid. This is basically a test before we get kids. It's just, oh, okay. I have to think about somebody else. I got to feed him. I got to make sure he's okay. So just being less selfish. It's definitely, and it's great fun, a lot of energy. Avid runner, do triathlons in the spare time. So I'm just keeping myself busy. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, kids are a little bit more work. Diapers are kind of like litter boxes, so you can kind of let them do
Dispose
that.
them, right?
It's a little bit more, yeah, but that's a good step. Well, welcome, man. Welcome to the podcast, and welcome to Texas. So, I totally feel where you're coming from in not wanting to go back to the office. I actually very similar. I mean, I went from teaching and being in the classroom 8 hours a day, and then COVID, where I was home and got to spend time with the kids, and then when I had been doing real estate, but then when the quadruplets were born, I was like, there's no way I can go back. I just can't do it. I mean, I've learned personally, and you're probably in the same boat now. I don't want to speak for you, but I've become 100% unemployable.
Yeah, exactly. It's like one of those, like, they can't put you back in a box, right? Like once you're out of there, it's just almost, and I'm thinking to myself, obviously I'm not complaining. I have great experience, met great people. I mean, again, I'm looking at everything. That was a lesson for me to be here where I am, right? Like I'm all around, glass half full. But yeah, to your point, like I would have done it, 10 years earlier, right? Kind of doing it on my own. But then again, COVID had to happen in order for me to get out of that, because it just, again, I was part of that great resignation where people were just leaving jobs in droves because they found there's other way to do things versus like the normal, quote unquote.
That whole scenario changed our lives in so many ways. And look, I don't want to minimize it in any way. I mean, it was terrible. People were sick, people passed away. I mean, it was bad. And I feel guilty personally saying this, but it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I was home, we were safe. I got to spend every day with my daughter during the time when she was 2. I mean, if I was working and in the classroom, I would have missed that time with her. And coming out of it, we realized like how much we can live our life by our own design and create the life we want and the business we want and the hours we want and work as much or as little as we want and do things that matter. And I see you everywhere, man. I see you. I mean, we're going to be an I group together. I see you at chamber events. I see you at happy hours. You've been all over the place since you moved to the Dripping Springs area.
Well, I kind of like, again, thinking when my wife gives me saying no, because I think in my mind I'm not doing enough, right? I'm always like beating myself. Oh, I should be doing more. I should be doing this. She's like, no, you're crazy. Like we just moved here almost a year ago, and you're like, all these people. You go to these different events. I'm like, oh my god, we moved here literally. We just knew like one person. So I'm all about commitment and like jumping in like with full force and not thinking about like half committing, right? I kind of call it half pregnant. You can't be half pregnant. Either you're pregnant or you're not. Right?
Yeah.
So you're going all in. And plus, like I said, I love the people, great community. So if I want to get out, like I want to learn more. I want to learn about the area. I want to learn about the market. So just to kind of be part of that community and see how can I help and grow with the community.
It's a testament to the area as well. I mean, South Austin and Dripping Springs, the fact that you've been here a year, you knew one person, and now you seemingly know everybody. It's just the kind of people we have here in this area. You see people, it's an area where a lot of people are moving here. It's been that way for a decade. And I mean, you can move to Austin, Dripping Springs, and it's like you've lived here forever with the type of people that you're meeting.
Yeah, 100%. I think wherever you go, you don't feel like a lot of, stigma about Texas, especially you coming from Northeast. It feels like, right, sometimes it's a different country because you see Texas flags everywhere. I'm like, am I in the States or am I in Texas, right? So,
Right.
but no, like you said, awesome people, everything is great. Sometimes I survived the summer, but I'll take that versus, 20 below in Colorado.
Oh, well, I mean, coming from those New Jersey winters, man, I'll take these hot summers any day. This year got me though. This one was a tough one. It was rough, but mostly because I couldn't get the kids outside. They'd go outside. The one day we took them to the park. I had actually just gotten over COVID. I was coming out of it and felt fine until I was pushing their wagon up the hill. Couldn't breathe. Finally get to the park. It's hot. We're there, I don't even know, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And the baby's found the littlest bit of shade. And my 5-year-old was like, Dad, we need to leave. I am melting. It is too hot. I'm like, girl, I just pushed you guys up a hill and I can barely breathe after being sick for a week. We're staying here. We about 15 minutes and we were gone. Just couldn't get them outside. It was tough. But the trade-off though for not having those cold winters, I mean, what do we get? 2 weeks of really cold through. We get one big storm a year now,
Yeah,
in
you can even
February, and
call it a
then
storm. There's no snow but
yeah.
yeah, it's like I said, it almost feels like you can go out and about every day without thinking, looking at the forecast. You
Yep.
just kind of go and do your thing.
The year I knew that I was where I needed to be, a good buddy of mine came to visit. It was right around Christmas. I think he came in, was like flying back to Jersey on Christmas Eve, or it was like around that time. And we were outside by the lake in flip-flops and t-shirts, drinking margaritas the day before Christmas Eve.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
what is this? Like he was going back to a snowstorm in Jersey, and just we don't realize how good we have it here.
Yeah, yeah. No, like I said, especially being like 40 plus different states. I mean, California has a separate place in my life, like the
Mm.
southern, SoCal, that's totally different. But like Austin is awesome in all
Well, I
those.
mean, let's be honest. What's better than San Diego?
Yeah.
The best. Just can't afford it.
Austin right now, it's probably better than San Diego in June. That's where we had
Yeah,
our first wedding anniversary, went to June 10, and we were like, it was like 65. I was like, what's this? And then obviously it's a June gloom, and I
yeah.
really didn't get the
So you
memo.
you were there the week before me, because I went later in June, or it might have been early July. No, it was before the 4th. It was late June. I showed up the day after all the June gloom was over, got in the Uber, and the guy's like, "Oh man, you picked a good day. Today's the first sunny day." And we were there for a week. Beautiful, just beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell me, first wedding anniversary, where'd you meet your wife?
It's
What's that story?
COVID, right? Like we met online, like during like COVID hit, and like just I'm a big personal development guy. I don't know if you heard about Landmark. So I just finished literally 2020 in February. I finished Landmark. They have this introduction program, and then obviously COVID hit, and then I see the message through LinkedIn. The guy, he's a coach for Landmark. Obviously, he got laid off. They were just because there were no courses, there's nothing.
Right.
And I signed up with him, and I was at the time was kind of all right. I want to kind of settle down and start a family because that was my kind of next big goal as far as career was. I was good in that sense, and I signed up with him. We started coaching like May 2020, and then for whatever reason, I kind of met with her online. She was in Dubai, so she's also Ukrainian. So she worked in Dubai at that time, and obviously COVID hit, so she was just nothing worked. So they were just sitting in hotel rooms because everybody's there's a lot of expats coming from all over the world, and she worked for the Four Seasons, so they had like a first season, but then they had like accommodation for the staff.
Right.
So we probably spoke for 4 or 5 months, and then I went to Dubai in December. Imagine I lived in Charlotte at the time, drove to Atlanta. It's the busiest airport in the world. Literally was just one terminal open. I think maybe 3 or 4 flights. There was only one Starbucks open and like some Chinese food. So I
Wow.
flew literally. I like the whole row was for me. I just literally just could sleep on a row, and like literally a couple of people, everybody masked up. So it was quite a crazy experience. So we flew from Atlanta to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam to Dubai. The whole plane was packed, sardines. It was like, because you fly to Dubai, it's like nothing happens. I mean, everybody got to wear a mask, but everything is open, people out and about, businesses. So it was like, oh my God, and like first time in Dubai, like, where am I?
Right.
So it was a quite cool experience. And then, going back and forth, I ended up living in Dubai for 4 months with her, just to kind of get to know her. And then went to Ukraine where my parents and her parents were, so we were like back and forth. And then she was in Ukraine, and then the war broke out in 22 last year.
Mhm.
So I was able to get her out of the country, and actually we kind of got her through the immigration, and we got married that year in Denver. So
Nice.
a lot of, I was telling, like, we're gonna tell, that's a cool story to tell our kids, future kids, of how we met and how we, ended up here together.
It's a modern love story.
I mean, like I said, love it or hate it, social media. I mean, just right. Like if you're stuck during COVID, like that's the only mean of communication.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I have been together forever, but a huge piece of our relationship revolved around AOL Instant Messenger, 15, 20 years ago. And that was
Are you guys from the same? She's from Jersey as well.
Yeah, kind of. Her father's a Marine, so her parents met in North Carolina when they were on base there, and then she was born in Georgia, moved to Japan, and then came back from Japan, and then was back and forth between Texas and New Jersey. She was there from 6th grade on. We met in college, and she has a lot of family here, and then we wound up moving here. When was it? January 3rd, 2010. Drove across the country. And it was after the economic collapse in the Northeast, and she had just graduated nursing school and couldn't get a job because all these hospitals were laying off or closing in Manhattan. So there was a bunch of really experienced nurses who couldn't even get jobs, and the new grads couldn't even get interviews. I had just gotten laid off. I used to work in outdoor advertising sales in Manhattan, so I used to sell bus wraps, billboards, train stations, all that stuff. Ad budgets were slashed, so I was just working jobs I hated and moved here, like just came to visit. Our first night ever in Austin was we came in, we went to the hotel, went to Salt Lick for all you can eat barbecue and BYOB. I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest place I've ever been. Went back, took a little nap, went out, and the first night here was Halloween on 6th Street. And I was like, I'm sold, we're in. And wound up coming back home. It was November. We moved out of our apartment at the end of November. We both moved in with our parents, packed up our stuff, and we were here January of that next year and never looked back.
Yeah.
Austin,
good place to be. You came in. It feels like even 20 years ago, all I hear is like this place has been booming since, I don't know, 70s or 80s. It's always.
Well, we saw the massive growth because just when we first got here in 2010, and then we moved to Dripping Springs about 6-7 years ago, and like living in South Austin and just seeing it. I mean, every time you went downtown, there was a new skyscraper going up or new something, and it's really exploded, man. It's a great place to be. We like it here. I mean, the goal was 2 years, get my master's degree, and go back to Jersey, but we had already built a house and we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah,
it's going well. So. Awesome. Well, you're here. You love it. Kind of got the love story out of you. Let's hear about Casago, man. What can we learn about Casago as a company and how you fit into the equation and kind of what made you choose that route?
I think that's a good story of kind of like me jumping in full in, right? Like either with my, kind of finance career of like me going to school, getting MBA and just kind of plain full out basically, right? And it's the same thing with Casago, getting into this kind of franchise model, the property management business. So like my real estate, I've been probably a real estate investor for the last 10 to 12 years, like passive. I have some stuff back in Ukraine where my parents, they again proved to the real estate, like building wealth and having passive income. They all retired, but they have kind of their own, and I have a couple of properties that they rent and they use that income for their, nobody cares about Social Security, especially now in kind of Ukraine and war and everything but they have property. So I knew the power of real estate investing, especially for, collecting rent, long-term rent. So that's, that's golden. Again, as you know, maybe that's kind of, you can share also your story, but COVID again, like I said, we moved to Charlotte. I moved to Charlotte. I bought a duplex, right? That's my favorite. I don't know if, your audience here, like house hacking normally, but that's a house hacking. So I bought a duplex. I lived in one unit. I was renting the other one. So the first year I would rent it as a long-term rental, which is fine, just probably, I think I was collecting $1,500. My rent, like my mortgage, like $2,000. So I was pretty much spending $500 to live in it's a 3-2 on an acre. I mean, it's a good property. And then COVID hit, my tenant left, and I couldn't find a new tenant. I probably went through like 40 or 50 different interviews. And I was like, I don't know, like nobody, what's going on? And then my friend, he's like, we have a mutual friend. She was doing, it's called arbitrage. Basically, you go rent a long-term rental and then you use that property for the short-term rental. And she was like, would you be interested in doing that? And I'm like, you know what? I don't really care as long as you pay me and the place isn't good, that's fine. So that she started doing that. I started seeing income coming in. And then the COVID hit, I was like, you know what? Why can't I just travel and you can Airbnb my place, right? So literally like it's the moment I listed and I was going to Dubai, the place got booked for like a month and a half. And I was like, wow. So it pretty much paid for whole my trip and then some. So I was like, that's it, I'm sold, right? And I kind of enjoyed the whole being active, and it's a part of it's a different, it's a real estate services, but obviously it's not, it's different than people think. It's a passive, like you just kind of collect rent and anything like that. But that's kind of my passion for being, providing service for people, experiences. So
let's go back to that term house hacking. So we're in this, we understand that. I want to make sure that our listeners really get that too. So basically the way that works, and you can house hack with a multifamily property, whether it's duplex, triplex, quadplex, or even in a regular home. So in doing that, what you're doing is you're living there and you have a duplex. So you live in one side, the tenant lives on the other side, and they're paying their rent, which is then subsidizing basically your mortgage, and you're paying very little, or even if that was a tri or a quad and you're collecting 2 or 3 rents, you're basically living for free. So there's so many opportunities to do that in the real estate world. And you can even do that in a single family home. So let's say you see this a lot near college campuses, where I can go buy a 4-bedroom house near a college campus, especially if your kid goes to college there. You buy the home, they get a couple of roommates, those roommates are paying rent, they're paying the whole mortgage, and you're just living free and building equity and having an opportunity to build wealth through real estate.
That's actually, there's another term for it now. It's more called co-living. It's actually, that's like exactly what you're saying. Even sometimes people do buy 3 or 4 bedroom home, but if there's a room to expand, they will like make another 2 bedrooms, and like, boom, there you go. You have $700-800 a room. And then it's pretty much guaranteed rent. It's like midterm, right? Like kind of rent by the room scenario. So yeah, that's the best way to kind of get in, especially if you have a, W-2. If you're the first time home buyer, you can get that with as little as 3.5% to 5% down. Boom, get that first property, do it for a year, and then you kind of go get another one.
And you can even do that. So if you can't necessarily qualify on your own, like let's say you and I wanted to do that, we can go in together and buy the house together, have 2 incomes in order to create that opportunity and get that mortgage. And we stay as roommates. Maybe we bring in that 3rd person, and it just makes everybody's living expenses go down.
And just a plug of like the whole, again, and you were probably on the same page with conventional education, and like I got, bachelor's, master's, like nobody taught me that in school. And I remember when I found all those things out, I was like mad of like, how come nobody like teaches this stuff, right? It should be taught in like college, like how to, master your financial kind of education, credit card, how to use debt, how do you buy properties, right? Like it boggles my mind up to this day.
First of all, we're 2 guys from New Jersey. So if pissed is the worst thing we say, we're in good shape. But you're right, man. You don't learn that stuff in school. And that's one of the things as a former teacher that frustrates me. And you see, like, I graduated college with so much debt, it was unbelievable. Like, you're just not taught at a young age how to manage that from anybody. So I had student loan debt, which was astronomical. I had probably $18,000 in credit card debt because, I mean, this is, the early 2000s when, I mean, it was predatory. They were just sending you credit cards in the mail, and they were real credit cards. All you had to do was punch in the PIN, get the code, call it, and you have a credit card. It's Thursday night. You're in college. You get this credit card with a $2,000 limit on it. We're going to the bar, man. Like, that's just it wasn't right. They're not doing that as much now, but just learning those things. I mean, I graduated college with like a 404 credit score, and it took me a decade to get back to where it was. And like now, finally, like in the 800s, it took me almost 20 years to get there from mistakes I made in college because I just didn't know any better because we weren't taught that. And especially the real estate idea, man, I would have been in this so much earlier if I just knew. Just didn't know. And there's so many. I actually had posted something on Dripping Springs Neighbors about a month ago, because what I want to do this spring is create a course where we meet like monthly or every other week, and it'll be for high school juniors and seniors and their parents to just talk about the topics that we never learned about, to talk about what it looks like to really get a student loan, to talk about what it looks like to have to do your taxes, to talk about what it looks like to buy real estate, to get a mortgage, to do all these things, basic life skills that you just don't learn in high school. And you learn those lessons when it's too late.
Yeah, basically business. I don't think you were there. We had the chamber coffee connected. I believe it was June because we skipped July, and we had a high school student. I don't know if you remember that, like either subbing or just visiting. Right?
That was one of the Marriott.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, yeah, right. Like getting that real life experience because it
was a high school student.
How sad to say, a lot of the professor in colleges, universities, they don't have that real life experience. But you can be, book smart and everything is perfect on paper. But once you're going, day one in real business scenario, it's totally different, right? Like Mike Tyson says, you can have all the plans. Once you get punched in the face, everything changes. So I'll definitely love your idea. Kind of again, share what you went through and how they can, save potentially 15 to 20 years of knowing, right? Like, because once you know, you cannot unknown, and you're like, oh man, how to buy that first property, how to do that, either house hack or start a business, right? Just do something that's really gonna propel me to those goals.
And I look at it too, and like I as somebody who's been a teacher and has gone through this, I'm just not the biggest believer in the college experience anymore as much as I used to be, because first of all, the cost is astronomical, and you just don't get that experience, and you just go from 12th to 13th grade and you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And a lot of times you don't need that. I mean, I look at myself, I have my bachelor's degree and I have my master's degree, and I still have student loans paying those off, and I don't use them. And you just get so much more life experience being an entrepreneur and building a business than you ever. It's a big thing. Like, you can go and create wealth through entrepreneurship and business and investing, or have a job where you're comfortable, it's fine, but you don't learn what it is to be a person in society who has to pick those things up on your own. If you can learn those at a young age, you are so much better off.
Yeah, well, you're better know than anybody else. Kelly Williams, right? Like you probably know how many other agents, like even under 30, that are crushing it, that probably never went to college, right? So that's
without question. I mean, I'm with that and the KWYP, and you see these people all over the country who are just crushing it, and they just figured it out. And real estate's powerful, and we're seeing that here in Dripping Springs. We're seeing that with a lot of short-term rentals. We're seeing this area, known as the wedding capital of Texas, tons of wineries, tons of wedding venues, and a lot of Airbnb properties that have been popping up. And you're out here managing a good handful of those. So how is that looking? How's that rental market here in Dripping Springs?
I know we're asking me about Casago, how I ended up there, so maybe that's a good segue.
Yeah, let's go back to Casago.
Sidetracked. Yeah, so again, the reason I kind of started, like, I bought a place up in Colorado, started, getting some clients, getting an idea. Okay, I like this. I want to do this full time. I want to have my own property management business. And then I met with Steve Schwab, who's the founder, and Ryan Dame, he's a partner. Like the two guys, they've been in the business for, combined probably 40, 45 years. And my idea was, how can I, kind of go connect with the people best in the industry, right? Basically learn all their mistakes and basically, accelerate the growth versus going on my own, figuring out what software I need to use, or, what operating procedures, like all that stuff. Like, again, that was kind of the no-brainer. Basically getting in the franchise, which is a little bit different than other like McDonald's franchise, where they pretty much tell you, how to mop the floors and how to greet folks. This is more, I would say, there's freedom for me to do what I get to do. It's my business, but I use their expertise, their support, their wisdom and all their kind of, collective team. There's about 80 of us as different franchise owners. So, and the reason we're here, because like I said, I love the market. I wanted to be in the area where I want to live and grow my family, not just for the business, right? So you checked a lot of boxes, great state, great big city, have an airport, you can fly around the world. So that was kind of the things I get to travel. Great business opportunity from like growing the business. I talked about Dripping Springs, you have Fredericksburg, Horseshoe Bay is just a huge market, and it's a drive-to market, right? It's from, if you think about recession or even higher gas prices, a person in Dallas or Houston, they can just jump in their car and be here in 2-3 hours. They don't have to buy a flight ticket, right? So that was another appealing, like from the market research perspective. And it's more or less a year-round market, right? It's everything's kind of, yes, there's winter, like you said, a couple of weeks, and then maybe hot summer, but for the most part, it's a pretty kind of balanced year, if you will, in terms of seasons.
So who is actually renting their homes on a short-term basis? We've spoke on investors who might just be purchasing it for that. That's kind of obvious, but who could do this? Who could actually rent out the property, or maybe it's a smaller home on a property? What does that look like for the average person who might be able to make a little extra money with what they already have?
So perfect example, we can start from the small, like, as you know, we have in Texas a lot of big lots, right? Like it's a big property, you have a home, and a lot of the time people have like the additional ADUs, like the little dwellings or a garage, and have a little apartment on top of it. So that could be a good start, right? As long as it's 1 or 2 bedroom, has a separate entrance. That's a good starter of like, hey, why don't we make additional income? And at the same time, provide that hospitality that people want. We don't have a lot of hotels in the area, and as you know, with upcoming solar eclipse, and I have a feeling once, whatever they say, 500,000 to 1 million people are going to come to the area, they're going to discover Hill Country and they were like, well, I love this place, I want to go back, right? So that's going to create even more, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line, it'll just open up this market to the whole country, right? Because I was in Denver, like, where's Hill Country? What is it like? Right? People don't know. I think outside of Texas, nobody really knows what's a Hill Country. To kind of go back to your question again, folks that have a small, literally they live on the property, they have a small apartment or a small like kind of ADU, or some folks that live in Houston and Dallas have it as a second home. They like to come here maybe once a month, once every quarter, but then the rest of the time, it's good to generate some income so it covers their mortgage and makes some additional income for them. So that's another person, or could be a person in Austin. They have that second home property they like to visit, kind of discharge from hustle and bustle, and they come here maybe every other month. Or given the market, if you can't sell the property but you're still paying the mortgage on it, why don't put it on the market for 16 to 12 months, see if you can kind of make some money with a short-term rental, market recovers, see if you can put back on the market. So I like to think from how can we solve your problem with the asset you currently have, because I think, again, going back to a lot of people just don't know what they don't know, and now like, oh wow, I have this asset, like how can I use it, leverage it to at least either break even, or if it's paid off, make some additional income.
So in doing that, there's short-term rental, long-term rental, and long-term rental, from my perspective, in the real estate world, it's safe. You know what you're making each month. You're gonna, cover your bills, cover your mortgage. At the very least, you want to be breaking even. I know with our higher taxes, it's been a little bit tougher as that's gone up, but you're breaking even. You're making some small cash flow. But what could that financial difference be from short term? Like, let's use an example of maybe a home. I'll throw out some numbers. Your mortgage is $2,000 a month, and you're bringing in $2,300, $2,500 a month on a long-term rental for a tenant that's there for a year, 2 years. What could that look like on the short-term side? And what could your profits actually look like when you're looking at a daily rate versus a monthly rate? And how can you increase that with some add-ons that make the place more desirable?
Yeah, so I like to say to my clients, and just in general, like, almost every property could be a long-term rental, but not every property could be a short-term rental, right? And I think that's a lot of the times people might think, oh man, I can throw anything on Airbnb and make money. Like, well, especially now with kind of, a little bit of Airbnb, it's not, everybody knows Airbnb these days, right? Like, it's, especially during COVID, everybody was like, well, I'm just put my property, make a killing. But, you have to be right property. It has to be in a desirable location. Again, if it's close to the breweries or there's a lake or something, right? So it's kind of, I would answer it depends, but you can easily double or triple your that, let's say that $2,000, you can definitely make 4 or 6 if you're doing it. Again, if you're investing into furniture, doing some design, right? Like, just think of it from that perspective of, again, because with the long term, you're pretty much just renting a vacant. There's nothing, right? There's no furnishing, nothing. There's nothing really for you to invest, as long as it has to be livable place. So it has to be definitely, person has to have that investor mindset of like putting some money down, like investing in the property to make a good for property to stand out, invest in a good, professional photography, and all those kind of, that's the minimal. That's a must these days. Especially in the area we are now, like Austin, like Dripping Spring. These are one of the, country's most competitive markets. And there's, quite a number of people doing themselves that are kind of figured out how to, invest a good amount of money into the property so you can generate good amount of income out of that property.
And the important piece about these properties that you see, the successful ones, they create an experience. You're not just
Exactly.
I can go to a Holiday Inn to sleep, but if I want to go somewhere that has a nice patio, maybe has a good sunset, has a stock tank pool or a hot tub, or just something that makes that home part of the vacation, I want to go there. There's a trade-off between the hotel industry and Airbnb, but again, it's still hospitality. And you'll see a lot of these places will have partnerships with the local breweries, or they'll have partnerships with a local turo, so there's a car available for you or whatever it might be. And the more of an experience you make it, in my experience that I've seen, it just makes it that much better of a trip.
Yeah, and again, like you just nailed it. Like, whenever I drive, like if I do on a long trip, like driving, I don't, like, if I need to stop to sleep, I don't look for Airbnb. It's cheaper to stop at, your local Holiday Inn, you sleep and then you drive again. Like, but when you're coming to the place, like, Dripping Springs or Fredericksburg, like, people come for experience, to relax. So for them, like, even cool feature, something like unique in the property, that's why they're there. That's kind of what draws their attention. We're human beings. We like catchy things. Like that first photo, like, has to be, you're the best photo in the property. Has to be something catchy and unique. Like, just, putting furniture and putting it on the market, like, it's not going to move the needle. Unless it's, again, last thing, people just, they need a place to stay. They'll stay at your place.
Well, and there's something also to be said in this industry about repeat and referral business. I mean, my family and I are, heading out to Florida coming up here, and we go to the same, spot. We go to Seaside, Florida every October, and we're 3 years in a row now staying in the exact same property because it works for us. It's nice. It's a good price. It's clean. It's in a great community with an amazing pool, and you go right across the street, and There's a big area with restaurants and an outdoor turf area and a large screen TV, and they play children's, the movies for the kids, and they can go watch the movie, and mom and dad can have a beer, and it's just a great place. And we've been there now 3 years in a row. And anytime anybody asks me, where do you go? I'm like, you got to stay here. And we've actually been in the same unit the past 3 years just because the layout really works well for us. But I mean, I send people to this area every single time anyone asks. And it's just because we've had a fantastic experience.
Right. It's like you're coming back to the experience because in your mind, like you're going, let's say you were there last year and now you're coming back to the experience because you had a great experience. Now you're stacking experience, more experience. And now you're like, it's kind of like going back to your, I go back to Ukraine, to my hometown. It's kind of, I'm going back to those experiences, right? Like I think, I know maybe not a good example, but to your point, yes, once you create that experience, people they don't much care about, oh, it's a 4 or 5 bedroom. They think in terms of like amenities or the views or the location, right? They don't really, it's almost like that, I don't know if you heard the saying like vacation brain, like people for some reason just start thinking, rationally, and like common sense disappears and they all vacation and like having fun.
Well, it starts before vacation because what I've always realized, and I'm going through it right now, is you spend more money preparing to go on vacation, having to get all the little things and extra toiletries, and I need this, and then before you know it, you spend all this money before you even get on vacation, and all that sense is already gone.
Yeah. So and again, you want to make sure because again, a lot of the times people save the whole year to go on vacation, right? And when they get there, the last thing you want to like, oh, they didn't have, good check-in instruction. The experience is horrible, right? It's everything just stacks up, right? Like it's kind of hard to brush off. They're waiting for this vacation for a year and then it's really, lackluster or like it's horrible experience. So again, it's
the biggest things you're looking for in this world. I mean, I think, you're the expert. Number one, it's got to be clean. It's got to be clean. The pictures have to be a representation of what the property actually is, because I've gone to some where you go there and you're like, oh, these pictures is not what this place looks like. And then also looking for add-ons. It's really nice, like, especially like if you're going to Florida or you're going somewhere and you have access to a golf cart, and then they charge more nightly rent for that. Or we're going and we know that when we go to this place, they're going to have beach chairs and boogie boards and sand toys, and we don't have to bring all that stuff because it's in the garage and we get to use it. And that's just helpful and adds on. And then the biggest thing, what's most important and why this really needs to be a hospitality industry, are your reviews and how much your reviews actually matter.
Yeah, well, it's live and die by reviews, right? It's again, I think we become that society wherever you look. You have Amazon reviews, Airbnb reviews, for you as a realtor, Google business reviews, it's all out there, social media. So it became more transparent. And I think it's a good thing. Like that way you can kind of raise your standards and keep your standards, not like, oh, I can hide this bad experience somehow. Like, no, 100%. Again, I used to do like, and I still kind of recommend of like, if I get a chance, like staying in the property, for example, for the owner, if they want to, place their property, let's say with us as a management, stay in the property and kind of put your renter's hat and make sure everything works, right? Like imagine you were staying in this place as a guest and like see if everything works, what doesn't work, like, right? Almost like test it before we kind of give it to the guests, because the last thing you want, like, oh man, this doesn't work. Oh, we forgot to do this, right? Because you're like could be rushing and trying to onboard the property and set everything up. And then all these little things kind of fall through the cracks.
Well, as many rental like positive experience I've had in this, I've had some bad ones too. I mean, this summer when we went to San Diego, my buddy and Cody and I were there teaching some classes in LA, and then we were going to San Diego. We weren't sure if we were going to stay in LA an extra night or go to San Diego, so we left that night open. And we were driving down the coast, and I was looking for an Airbnb, and everything was just last minute. San Diego was just so expensive. We found this great deal. We're like, great, it's just perfect spot to sleep for the night. We're going to go to the nice Airbnb the next day. We were hoping we could get the front end day on that one, but it got booked, so we just go there early. We figured it out. We show up, it's just a little studio over Balboa Park. Never was cleaned. Beds are dirty. We got in late. It's 9 o'clock. We called. But what was really important, though, as bad as that was, it was a mess. They comped through the night for us. told us where we can get clean sheets, what we could do, and so it's your call. Like, you can stay there, you can go find a hotel. And we looked, it was this point, it's 10:30 at night. We made the bed, slept there. They comped the night. The experience, when we showed up was terrible because of the dirty room, but the concierge experience from the owner of that, she was so apologetic. And, I still left her a 5-star review, even though, because, the cleaning person, and this is just part of it, it's important who is the team that you surround yourself with. She was under the impression it was cleaned. The cleaning person just never showed up then. So it wasn't her fault, but she made it right in the end.
Yeah, again, communication, right? And I think a lot of, and I keep telling like newer hosts or people like, I think communication, it's the easiest way to get like 5-star reviews. And like, again, perfect example in your scenario, if for whatever reason, the team kind of screwed up, they took the ownership, but you communicated, you were proactive, like, boom, you got a 5-star, right? Everybody happy at the end. So I think like anything, like if you're kind of, especially for folks that want to do it themselves, like I always say, not every property could be, managed because it's either too small for whatever other reason, but some folks want to do it themselves, right? Like, so communication is the number one, like the most easiest and something you can kind of do it immediately. Just be communicative upfront, proactive, and make sure during the stay, after the stay, everything, make sure they all happy and 5-star review pretty much guaranteed.
Even if you do think you can do it yourself or you do want to go that route, I believe it's still really important to talk to an expert about it. Like, you should talk to Roman. You should get a estimate on what this property could look like, even before you do that decision. And you can look at it and see if maybe management's for you, maybe it's not. But talking to an expert to find out if it's even the right move is important. And that, that's not something you're going to charge for if somebody just wants a consultation.
Yeah, I'm all about, like I said, I'm in the abundance mindset. There's plenty for everybody. I would love for people, because again, I'm coming from the same. I'm a host myself. I own property, so there's no, I'm open book in that sense for sure.
And it's just like doing that extra research and finding out, like, you helped me out with some clients down in Canyon Lake who we were considering buying a more expensive home so they could Airbnb it when they weren't there. But in the end, you just, where they were and where they were looking, the numbers didn't work out. It wasn't worth buying the extra home. And that didn't cost either one of us anything. It was just sharing expertise. And then the client was happy in the end because they didn't get into something they shouldn't have gotten into.
Exactly. That's the right. Like I think people think, oh my God, I want to get into this, but it just might not be right. Maybe doing the long term. Again, going back to my every property almost could be a long term, but not every property could be short term. 100%. Like, and again, we're in the same people business, providing services, making sure that we help them, kind of guide them. Right. We're not, again, it's for them to make decisions, but like I'll just kind of from my own experience and expertise. Yeah.
Now, so Casago, we talked a lot about short term. Are you guys also doing long-term management as well?
Not, but we partner with we have a good company that do long term. So it's we don't do. We just at the moment we do short term. Again, I'm a believer in sticking to the one thing we're good at, and just because it's a totally different business model, operations, different kind of software, different process of onboarding, and then opens up, right? Like more than 30 days, there's different laws because the guest becomes a tenant. So you have, tenant laws. Right. With guests, there's, it's a different laws around that.
We talked a lot about general Airbnb type properties and, the ability to have like an apartment garage or a whole home or a vacation home. One of the things that's always been intriguing to me, and we saw this firsthand with a listing that I had as a luxury Airbnb, where you can actually look at big homes, expensive homes, and these things can be money makers where, you can, the one home I'm thinking of was that lake home on Lake Austin that I had for sale that we were having a little bit of trouble with. And we wanted to show what it could be as a short-term rental. And then I even took that to my clients to see if it was something they wanted to do. We were looking at a house that you had projected was going to bring in over $350,000 a year.
Yeah, I remember that was a nice property. Yeah.
So, you see this, and if you're somebody who has a really, this isn't just like the smaller properties or the extra room. You could have a big, really nice house. And this one really made sense because on Lake Austin, gated community, very, very, very private. And you got to think, man, people who have a lot of money, people who are very private, celebrities, they're always in and out of Austin, and they always need somewhere to stay. And they're not staying at the hotels downtown. They're finding something a lot more private. And these are options that, I mean, this house was a $2 million house making $350 a year. I mean, that's a huge cash on cash return if that's the route you want to look at and go down as an investor or a homeowner.
Yeah, and again, coming into this, I like to always tell my, prospects or clients, like, what's your goal? What's your why, right? Like, because and again, the people who are renting those those are, again, they buying for experience, they're renting for experience, and they have certain expectations, right? So it kind of creates a different kind of caliber of people. And then the property owner that own those properties, they have to be in the line with, catering to those guys, like making sure that the property is on par with the expectation. So it definitely has to be in alignment with, a property owner, property manager, and making sure that we have the right guest in mind.
What does it look like in Austin as far as the general short-term rental market? I know there's been a lot of information and misinformation of where you can and can't rent and like those kind of laws. So like just generally, and I know we've talked a lot about the hill country, but even if you're in the city or in the city limits or in the ETJ, where can you have a short-term rental property within Austin and the surrounding communities?
Well, I think, again, I'm more expert on here, but from what I know and kind of connect with my other groups in Austin, technically, there haven't been any new as of today, was it October? It still technically has to be owner occupied, right? Like it's either a room or the ADU on your property, in the city
of
limits.
Austin, the city limits, yeah.
It's a city limits, but last time I checked, there was more than 10,000 listings and there's only a handful of permits. So kind of tells you how, and they don't really have resources. I think it's like they can't just turn half of a city resources to go after people that doing rentals. So, but I know it's kind of gray area, but Austin in general, it's pretty saturated because it's a great place to be. Everybody wants to be here, right? And everybody who bought a place, given the mortgage, they want to make some money to cover those expenses. So I can't blame them.
And what I mean, what if someone is going to Europe for the summer, or somebody's going on a long vacation, or they have a new job and they're not sure if they want to sell their home yet, so they're going to go test out the new city they have to move in for 3 months. I mean, those are opportunities where instead of letting the house sit vacant, you can get somebody in there on a short-term basis and make some money and have somebody else paying that mortgage plus some.
Yeah, or you probably heard like midterm, a lot of traveling nurses. That's a good, for example, if you're moving out for 3 or 6 months, you don't want to do short-term rental because it's one, property management is just not long enough commitment to take it on, right? It takes at least 6 to 9 months to ramp up the property, get reviews and everything. They can rent as a midterm, right? Do a 3 months or 6 months. So there's definitely opportunities. Again, short term, you got midterm and then long term, right? I think long term is more conventionally, we think it's a year plus, but technically, if it's more than 30 days, right, then it's technically becomes a midterm / long term.
Yeah, and that's HOA specific too. Like some will say 6 months or more, and that's kind of all determined on who you're in.
It's not really clearly defined, right? But I know as long as it's less
that's
than 30 days.
That's why these are conversations we can have. Roman and I can work with you if you have questions. I mean, I even know people who will just rent their house out the week of South by Southwest, or we have ACL going on this weekend.
Yeah.
People need somewhere to stay, and you can get big money during these weekends when people are in town. I mean, whether it's ACL, South by Southwest, F1, coming up here next year with the Eclipse. I mean, these are going to be huge events. People need somewhere to stay, and they're willing to pay big dollars for a nice home.
Yeah, and think of like maybe 3 or 5 years out. It's as the city grows, like it's just going to be more people coming here, right? And if you have that, how can I get on that? Either buy a property or maybe build an addition or something. Like keep that in mind, as this area will just keep growing and the demand for travel will just keep increasing. So, and again, like long term, in real estate, you kind of be long term because there's not much. Everything is long term in real estate, right? Like you can buy today, but you gain your appreciation in
There's
years
no day
down. So
trading real estate.
what's that?
No day trading real estate.
Yeah, no day trading. Yeah.
So one final question I have for you, and I know we've talked about this being a real estate agent, and I've seen you have this conversation with other real estate agents, is everybody seems to think that we're enemies, that you get somebody who's a short-term renter, I lose out on my opportunity to get a commission or work with them and do what's best for my, I want to do what's best for my client. But you guys actually have a program where you tie real estate agents in, and it's advantageous for them to do the right thing and make sure that we're presenting. So what does that look like with the program that y'all have with real estate agents?
Yeah. So we we technically kind of have like two programs. Obviously, one is a referral based, right? Like getting and it varies, depends on the property, from 500 to 1,000 per property. But then we'll also have the second one. It's we call them lifetime of leads, and basically what that means, for example, Bill, if you bring a property into a referral owner into a property property management program, we'll use your information in digital guidebook. We'll send like a survey to each owner. If they decide to buy a property in the area, your name will pop up. Basically, you'll become a preferred vendor as an agent for every guest that stays in that property for how long that property stays in our program. So only takes one, basically, and it costs you nothing, right? Like it's a free marketing advertising. So I think that's kind of the cool feature that we offer.
And it's our fiduciary duty to our clients to be doing the right thing. And that's where this new market and this evolving Austin real estate market is, where, I mean, I've lost out on probably 5 or 6 listings this year because I was completely honest with my clients and told them it wasn't the right move to sell, or it wasn't the right time to rent the house out. And because we couldn't get enough rent to cover their bills or whatever it might be. And that's where we as agents have to do what's right for the clients. And that might be a short-term rental and introducing them to Roman. And with that abundance mindset that we both have, it's all going to come back to us in the end. And if we're doing the right thing, we're successful. And that's what we're here for. And that's one of the reasons why I, personally like to partner with Roman, because he's a guy that I trust. And I want to make sure that he's doing the best to take care of my clients and make me look like a rock star for the referral.
Yeah, and let's kind of maybe end with, are you familiar with Simon Sinek? Start with why.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about the finite and infinite game, right? The finite, it's basically transactional, right? Once you finish transaction, the relationship is over. But when you're working on an infinite game, like it never ends, right? It's kind of like you can't lose if you don't quit. Same idea, same mindset, right? And I think a lot of different businesses, people like, oh my God, this is my territory. Oh this is like my clients. I'm just going to be protective. Like, I'm a big believer, like whatever's supposed to be mine is going to be mine, and what's yours is yours. So it just becomes easier to share and communicate and collaborate. Because if you think about it, we're all competitors, but like if you have that mindset, like that more like an enemy mindset, it's not really going to help.
Yeah, I mean, we're competitors as collaborators. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing for our community, and that's what's important, and that's why we love Dripping Springs. That's why we love Austin, South Austin, and this whole area. Fantastic place to be, and it's full of guys like Roman, and that's something that I'm proud of, and happy to call him a friend, and happy to call him a competitor and a collaborator.
Yeah, man. We almost have a same birthday, huh? A day apart or two. So.
Anything else you wanted to share, or did we kind of hit all of it?
No, I think, like I said, I'm still learning, always be learning and growing. I'm really open to for your audience to reach out if any questions. I mean, we're all business owners, always growing. It's always every day is something unique, something interesting. Either new people, new business opportunities. So I'm always open to learn and share what I learned.
Well, go ahead and find Roman at Roman_hospitality_expert. If you have any questions on the short-term rental game, you can reach out to Roman. Any questions on how to acquire a short-term rental, and want to take a look, I'm happy to help and see where we can find you something. And Roman and I will work together to make sure we can find out what your goals are and how to achieve them. So Roman, thanks again for coming. It's great having you. Learned a lot about you. And
thanks, Bill. Yeah, appreciate it. Likewise.
Reach out, and we hope that this episode made you even more sold on drip.
Thank you for listening to the Sold on Drip podcast. Please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. If you would like to connect, learn more about Dripping Springs, or have any questions regarding Central Texas real estate, you can find me at soldondrip.com or on Instagram at Bill Cafferetta. I hope to see you around town.